So thank you all for choosing our session. As Michael say, internal communication is always a subject in organization. And as we are seeing a lot of services coming in Microsoft 365, like Microsoft Viva services, we have a lot of questions from organization to do perfect internal communication. That's why with Kevin, we thought it was a good idea to make a 2024 focus on internal communication. So let me introduce myself briefly. So my name is Laurent Carlier. I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant based in France, and I work daily with organizations, helping them with their digital transformation on both IT governance and change management, with mainly Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Viva. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for 5th time in a row, and also proud member of Viva Explorer community as Kevin. And on my spare time, I'll also create some infographic on Microsoft 365 products that you can find on my blog, MVP blog, teams2simple.com. What about you, Kevin?
Thank you. So, hello, I'm Kevin McDonnell. I am sorry, I have to take a deep breath for this one, Copilot Strategy and Modern Workplace AI Lead at Avanade. So it's a fairly recent role and a fairly long one at that. But I've been working with SharePoint, Office 365 and all the assorted ones for about 20 years. I started over in financial services, looking in there through a few investment banks and asset managers. And then about 8 years ago, I had to kind of check on the years and keep knocking this up, which is terrifying. I moved over to the consulting side. So I've seen both sides of the fence from that. Similar to Lauren, I'm an MVP. Just see my trophy. I've only got the 3 ones here, but looking forward to my first summits coming up soon on that. I'm also the co-host of the Copilot Connection podcast with Zoe Wilson, who's speaking in what's about three hours time on accessibility and Copilots. We talk about all the different Copilots, but my aim is that is the only time I'm going to mention Copilot today, which is quite a challenge from there as well. And I'm also a member of the Viva Explorers, and instead we're going to be focusing on that kind of slightly lost joy of Viva as we go on today. But in terms of the agenda, we're going to talk about ways of communicating. So we're going to start off with that why. What is it we're looking at on there? We're going to talk about some of the tools, and we're going to do live demos, fingers crossed on that one, of some of the tools that you can use that are in your weaponry with Microsoft 365. We're going to cover how you know that those tools are working. So looking at the kind of analytic tools that you have available within Microsoft 365. We're going to cover the L words, looking at what licensing you need to make this happen. We're going to cover the other L words and maybe open this up to a bit of discussion as to your views on this as well. We're going to talk about not necessarily the actual limitations, but some of the things you need to think about for the different services that are available. And then we're going to wrap up with a beautiful takeaway that Lauren's put together that you can use. And I know if we were here in person, everyone would be lifting up that camera at that point to take a shot of that. But even better, being remote, you can just take a screenshot. Or if you don't want to, we'll have a link to the deck so you can take that away as well. Although I may need to tidy up some of the notes I've just remembered, Lauren, and take some of the passwords out. That reminds me on that one for this version. In fact, I'm going to do that right now just before we get to that sharing point. So let's start off with what is communication? What do we mean by that when we talk about it? And you can take it down to a very base level. It's really the process of sending and receiving information from one person, such as Laurent, to another, such as myself, using a channel of information. And that channel could be all sorts of different things. It could be a telephone. It could be face-to-face. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. It could be Zoom. There are different ways. It could be different processes you're sending through. But basically, looking down at communication, it's brought down to that very simple level. And you could say it could be from from multiple people, it could be to multiple people, but it's getting that sending and receiving of information. And if we take that a little bit further, there's different ways. There's that verbal communication, as we're doing to you right now. We're talking, we're sharing. But, you know, being an MVP, I love to wave my hands around a bit on there. There's that non-verbal communication. There's trying to connect eye contact in person. You can get those tones. What you can't see is my legs dancing below here, or me holding onto my little fidget toys to keep me concentrating, that you would get those cues to people in real time. Then we move on to more of the things like the written communication with there, and it's really vital for some of these that you get across what matters, because when you have written communication, you lose some of that non-verbal element to it. You have to be very clear what you're trying to get across from that. You need to make sure that it's in a style that's understood, and also that it matters who is sharing that as well, because you can write the same thing. And if I share that out, if Lauren shares it out, if Jeff Teeper shares it out, you're going to listen and interpret that in different ways within there. For those who don't know, Jeff Teeper, the godfather of SharePoint at Microsoft, who looks after the SharePoint Teams world on there. If he says something, you're going to listen to it differently. There's a fantastic book called Messengers that looks about that, about not only what you say, but how you say it and who says it that is important. And it's also important to get that listening that come through within there, that listening to that conversation. So being able to share things out, getting that feedback. Is it resonating with people? Are you getting the analytics to understand whether your message is getting across to people as well? And then you've got the visual communication, because it matters how easy it is for people to consume what they're looking without having to go hunting, without being overwhelmed by this bombardment of different communication. Lorion and Megan Strands were talking earlier about distractions on there. And if you're putting too much communication out, if you're putting lots of long communications out there, it can be very hard to consume. So thinking about how you get that across to people is really important. It really matters as to what is being looked at and what isn't. But with today, we're really focusing on those third three elements of that: the written communication, how you can hear, providing feedback, engaging communities, how you can see the analytics to understand what people are looking at so you can tailor your communications effectively, and how in this modern world, for those who've been around SharePoint, we're not talking about ugly things. Not like Lauren and I. We're talking about beautiful communications. Sorry, Lauren, I shouldn't judge by my own standards. But bringing beautiful, easy to consume, putting it in the channels that people are doing it, putting it into that flow of work, and make it available everywhere. So you've got it on your mobile devices, you've got it on your tablets, you've got it on your desktop. You can put this where people need it and allow it to be personalized to what people need. So I'm going to talk through a few different services, the kind of things we're looking at today. I'm kind of assuming you know all these logos, but just to talk them through, Teams, I hope you recognize that. We'll be covering a bit of how that then links with Viva Engage, which one you should use when. I'll let you guess as to whether we answer that nicely. The good old warhorse that is SharePoint, that is still there powering that content. We're going to talk about email, because I'm sure many of you are still using email and it's still a primary form of communication. And then the kind of new player in all this that maybe brings a bit of this together with Viva Amplify. But Laurent, shall I hand over to you to share and bring up some of your magical demo of this?
What a pressure. Magical demo. Okay, good. So if you have any question, please put it in the chat, and then we will look at it at the end of the session. So let's start with communication. We all know in Teams. Basically in Teams, there are three types of communication: one-on-one communication, conversation group communication, and also conversation in channels. One-on-one conversation, I will not introduce this because I'm pretty sure you all know about this. Conversation groups. This is actually interesting, conversation groups. I see many organizations who do a lot of conversation groups on midterm and long term. So the question is, conversation groups inside Teams, is it a midterm or long term? I don't think it's good. Conversation groups in Teams, it's better to put it on a short terms. And the thing that you have to do, as you can see on my screen, when you have a conversation group between many people, you have to name the conversation groups. As you can see here, this conversation groups is about brand house covering. If you do not name conversation groups, then it can be very difficult. If you have many conversation groups with only the names of the person, I'm pretty sure you know this situation. So when you see the list of the person, the first question is, okay, what is about? So be very careful on that. My recommendation when you are doing some internal communication inside Teams is that conversation group must be a short term. I'm pretty sure you agree with that, Kevin. And then you have to name the conversation groups. Okay, so first channel of internal communication, conversation groups. But let's see, what about...
And I'd say, Laurent, I beg
Yeah.
people to name those groups as they create them. Give them a reason. And if that reason changes, rename it from there. Don't just have a list of names, because that will help people find things too.
Exactly. And you can also insert some icon, as you can see here. This is good, actually, with the keyboards, Windows and a dot. Then you got all the icons to just customize the conversation groups. But what about the midterm and long-term conversation? Midterm and long-term conversation will be mainly done inside Microsoft Teams and inside channels. And I'm pretty sure you know about this, as the main recommendation when you are working in Microsoft Teams is to build some channels. This is very important. I also see many organizations like this example with Microsoft Teams with only the general channels. Okay, general channels. So that means for me is that inside that Microsoft Teams, that will be general conversation. And the trick is that if you put all the conversation inside general channels, then it can be very hard after to find the proper conversation. Let me just see, as I'm logged as Adele, let's see about that Teams Mark 8 project teams. So it's good to build Microsoft Teams by project. And as you can see here, if I go on research and development, there is a conversation from me, Adele Vance, and I see, okay, inside channels, I can do some conversation about files, because Microsoft Teams is about files and conversation. And that's why you should really focus on conversation inside Microsoft Teams when you are working on files, and also when you're working in midterm and long term. So that is the correct recommendation, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of that, as all of the people are using Microsoft Teams since 4 years. But
and one thing to notice on those general channels that's coming soon is that ability to hide the general channel. So even more what you're talking about there.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is a good thing because we need general channels. Let me see that. Mark 8 project channels. This is a wrong example, actually, from this demo. We should put here what is Mark 8 project teams about. So we should insert an introduction about Mark 8 project teams, the objectives, the way they will communicate inside Mark 8 project teams. So this is like an introduction. The correct rules to communicate and also collaborate in Mark 8 project teams. So general channel is mandatory, but you do not have to use general channels to put some specific conversation. But the thing is that you can hide general channels. For me, this is not a good option, but I'm not sure about you, Kevin.
I think I like it because one of the things I find is that people too often fall back to just putting stuff in general, and you spend a nice time kind of putting your information architecture in there, and everyone just bungs it all in general and then puts a nice folder structure within the files that makes no sense. So I kind of like it. I think it's going to cause problems, but that's why you have adoption and change.
Yeah, exactly. Let's continue on the Microsoft Teams. Oh, I see that I have a remote living Teams with only the general channels. Okay, so I will click on this and I see that there is an introduction. Welcome to the remote live Teams. And this space is to share some tips, personal insight, experience, etc. But wait a second, why there is a remote living Teams to share some tips? Because I already see that there is also a community in Viva Engage about remote living. Let's connect on that. Remote living. Okay, this community has been created to share your ideas and questions about remote living. Okay, so basically this is the same thing. Okay, but what should I use? As we are sharing some ideas and experience, I don't think Microsoft Teams is a correct space to do this. I would rather go to Viva Engage communities to do this. Let's check the communication. Okay, Alan is talking about advice for remote living and Deborah is asking some question. Okay, good. So we have remote living, but let's continue on that. I see that on my home feed, I have different kind of home feed coming from the people I'm following in Viva Engage. And on this part, I can see that, okay, there is a communication from Miriam. Miriam is my leaders. Okay, let's go on leaders. What is saying? I will go on that. Big news, starting from July 1st, we are launching a new programs to work from any country in the world for a period of 3 months. That's good, actually. If my company would launch this, I would be very happy. But as I see on this screen, I have also an AMA. What is an AMA? AMA is like ask me anything. And as you can see, this is an AMA concerning that program to allow employees to work from any country in the world. Okay, let's check that. And here I can see that all the people in my company are asking some question about this program. This is actually good to have a specific space to put some question about a program, about a thematic. If I want to do this without Viva Engage, then I will have to do this in Outlook. And I'm not sure if this is a good solution for that. Or maybe I will do this in Microsoft Teams, but Microsoft Teams is not, for me, a space for community. And that's why it's good to have in Viva Engage some announcement from a leader. And then this leader will just set an AMA about details concerning that programs. So I have this and okay, but what about if I have question, general question, not question about this program? Do I have to put this in Microsoft Teams on maybe org-wide Teams? Or do I have to send this in Outlook? No, because I have this part here, answer. Okay, let's check this, answer. Welcome in answer in Viva. Okay, what is about? I can see here many questions. How can I access my company policies procedure? I'm pretty sure you know that question. You can see that question in many organizations. How do I reset my password, etc.? So I can see this is general question. That is interesting. And if I look at this, I can answer actually. Alan De Jong, what virtual teamwork activity should I do with my teams? Okay. So as a there, I can see, okay, join the remote living community. I can just post this and Alan de Jong will see that question. And as you can see here, there is some vote. This vote means that 2 people think that this question is very interesting. And I can see here there is a tag, best answer. Okay, let's see what is this best answer. Okay, how can I access company policies and procedure? Lydia said search. I'm not sure this is the best answer, but Johnny put the correct answer. All company policies are available on the company share drive. Okay. And someone tag, okay, best answer. So I'm pretty sure, okay, if I want to find the correct answer to that question, I should look at best answer. Okay, so as you can see, we have some communication, internal communication inside Teams, but it's related to project or it's related to services. But if you want to have some large communication on specific thematic, you can go in Viva Engage and you can have the communities, you can have the leaders, the AMA, and also the answers. And all these space, when they are working well together, and as Kevin said, this is a change management procedure. You have to explain to your users that if you want to do this, you would rather go to, for example, Microsoft Teams, or you would rather go to Viva Engage. So that was my part, Kevin. I will let you continue on your part.
So, can I congratulate you for saying Viva Engage so much and not once saying the word Yammer? That was great work on there. But I'm going to take some of you back a little bit to the other world, the content services provider for this, because where we have the magic of Viva Engage, we also have the old warhorse, as I called it earlier, of SharePoint. And there's still a great place for SharePoint. It can still be that hub where you can bring different things together, different information from there. For it as well. You can tell I'm quickly bringing up my notes. The pain of not using PowerPoint Live and meaning that I have to hide those around a little bit. But you can see from this that you can get together your hub with information, including that Viva Engage. So here is that remote living community. I've created a site for remote living as that hub, and I've brought forwards into that community the conversations that are taking place, the advice, and I can do that upvoting right there from within SharePoint. So it's blur. I can see someone in chat talking blurring those boundaries. Fantastic, but bring those things together. Bring that hub and spoke model. It doesn't need to be, I have to go here for this, I have to go here for this. You can bring certain bits of that content to link those things together to make them relevant. But if I take this up, I've got that feed within there. I've also got the activities. Now, unfortunately, it hasn't brought any through. Oh, there we go. Learn from early adopters. So it will pull forward from your Viva Engage and information from other key areas as your core activity. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be your content that's on the site. You can expand that activity view from your homepage to show what's core to you. And that's a personalized view on that you can help surface other information from there as well. But from here, I can bring different content together. So, for example, I've put this down as blogs within there. Blogs obviously been around for a long time, but it gives that opportunity to have that wordier view. This is an entirely fictional story about a Frenchman who loves Japan and would love to move over there. I don't know, Lauren, if you know where that's come from at all. In terms of that story. But you can see I can write, I can have that chat, I can see how many people have viewed that, I can like and comment, going back to that engagement from there. And I can save this for later. So I've got that nice, easy way to kind of flag something that, yes, that's interesting, but Alan's waffled on a bit here. I haven't got time to read this. I can tag that as a bookmark to pick up from there. As the owner of this site, I can promote that. I can bring things like the immersive reader into that, so I can make it very easy to consume within there. Let's get rid of those tips on there, and I can bring it into the content or even have it read out the message in there. So a very inclusive way to bring that together as well. Going back to the homepage, it doesn't just have to be internal content. So if there's blogs or other information, such as this, that actually is from the Harvard Business Review. If you're talking about remote living, you're going to have people in remote meetings, such as we have now. Here's a lovely share that you can bring on of 6 super fun activity. I hate that word, that phrase, super fun, but some ideas for how you can bring virtual meetings. The key to that is you can bring that and it appears exactly the same as the other ones, but it's bringing that information that's relevant. And when you add those, all you need to do is put in the link. SharePoint will do that magic of trying to pull a nice image from it, will bring that summary through for you, so you can bring your news into that in one place as well. But I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to talk about email. The reality is more and more people, I know we're talking about adoption and change and encouraging people to come through and have Teams as their hub to make use of Engage, but email is still for a lot of people where they live. Outlook is their primary way of connecting with that. So how do you bring people into that? Well, as well as that personalized information, you as the owner of a site can create these newsletters, these email digests, and you can select which of these articles on a regular basis that you think's useful, including those external pieces. You can select which of those articles you want to come through. You can build out, give it a title, remote living. I actually had to look up what month it is. That's terrifying. Remote living 2024, you can decide who that's going to go to. That could be your remote living members. It could be your that you just want to send this to, for example, finance. And these are using those same as your AD groups, those security groups that you've got set up. You can put your waffle in there of things like some lovely stories to share this month. Put something nicer in there, or even, and here's a little clue, I actually have used the Copilot within there. Hopefully you'd use the Bing Chat Enterprise version that's secure, so you're not putting information, but help write that and make sure useful content come through, at least until some of that's more embedded. And you can change that so you don't have to go with the order. You can move around the different section so you get the most important information first. And you can see I've saved that as a draft, but for now I'm going to cancel that and bring it there. Oh, Michael, you picked up on Copilot, damn it. I thought I got away with that. So there you can bring that newsletter through. But it's not just about those newsletters. Up until recently, that was the only way you could easily get things or send links in there, and you'd only get those summaries. Now you've got that ability, such as this article, that you can create here, and you can see I can actually send that entire page as an email from there. I can build out that content in a way and send that exact page to come through as it is with all that content in an email. Now, we'll talk more about limitations later. One of the things with this, there is a slight limitation in terms of the number of different web parts that you can use within that, but you can share and bring that to other people. And that really links into your different content, your different ways of working through that. In fact, let's go and have a look at some of those emails. And there is this email, that full page coming through. And if you forget to fill out tables, then it won't show your tables in there. But it will show that content in the way that you see it. If I go back and have a look at that article, it's the same view within there you're seeing directly into the email. And you could even use those pages to amalgamate different news stories to come forward from that. You can see that newsletter here is just giving that summary. So it's giving that high level view. It's very fixed. You can't customize this. You can't put your own branding and change the layout. I have worked with other people around using Power Automates to change some of that, but by default, you don't do that. The reason I like the newsletter is it does only give that summary, which people then click on and takes them into the site. So you give that little nugget of information to take them where you want to go within there. You could, just carry on sending email newsletters. Please don't have someone manually rate an email, copy and paste your content in there, copy and paste some links, regurgitate what's the SharePoint things. Try and use that newsletter capability within there. Try and move people away from this as well. But you can see with email, I'm getting that notification. So I'm getting that emails about groups. And where Lauren talks about that announcement that's come from Viva Engage, I'm again getting that announcement. And this is lovely because I can still interact with that in Viva Engage within that email. So you're opening up that idea of using Engage while also allowing people to live within their email to a certain degree as well. So where does email work nicely? I'm going to move on now to looking at Viva Amplify. You can see here, I'm accessing this via the web. It is there as a Teams app within as well. You've got nice ways. I love a lot of these elements that have come through with making it easy to get started. But here I've just come through to campaign. So with Viva Amplify, you're creating campaigns, groups of information coming through from there. And I can look at, for example, a remote living campaign. It doesn't seem to matter how many times I click. No, I don't want to see that. It still keeps coming back. But here is my campaign within this. This is where I'm going to share information about that. And how do I know what I should be talking about here? Well, as the campaign owner, I can define a campaign brief. I can outline that strategy of what I'm trying to create, those objectives. So we know that when we're creating articles, it should be about building engagement, linking people with the core site, and encouraging feedback. That's the core views. And I can remind people of those messages. And this will show up as people are creating the content to actually bring that forward as well. So you can help keep people aligned with what they're looking to achieve. In terms of bring those out, you can see I've published that article of learning more from early remote adoptees. And if I come back to the homepage, you'll see that was, if I come back to the homepage, you'll see that that was pushed out onto that blog site as well. So I can push that content out onto SharePoint. But there's also distribution channels for Outlook and Teams. I can create that content once and push that out to multiple areas, knowing it's going to appear consistently, knowing it's going to work well on mobile devices on the different ways. So here is a draft one that I've pulled through. And just started to go there about exploring living in South America. Those observant have gone, that's probably been written by ChatGPT. Almost got me again, Michael. Yes, that might be the case on there. So I've just copied and pasted that in there, some nice content. And here you can see the different channels that have come through. I've got Outlook, and I can preview what that will look like specifically within Outlook. So where those slight differentiators that come through, I can actually preview that nice and quickly. I said amplify nice and quickly. Come on, nice and quickly. Okay, I told you this was going to be a live demo. I can change who I'm sending that to.
The demo does not like Outlook, definitely.
No, well, yeah, that's a good point on there. Let's come back to the edit and change that and hope it comes back to life quickly. There we go. So I can preview, I can customize that. I can change who the recipients are. I can change within SharePoint where I want that to do. So I can customize, I can add different SharePoint sites. So I can add that remote living site that I want it to go to. And I can preview that, which I'm not going to click on quite yet because I don't want it to lose that. I can change which team I want that to be published. That will be published in team. And coming soon, as you can see down the bottom, it will also be able to go out to Viva Engage. So it will keep Laurent happy with that. Yeah. I've got that writing guidance that I can bring through, and I can see other getting inspired by different things. I can bring resources to that to help me. But once I'm happy, I probably should add an image, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move on from there. I can have a look at those previews. There we go. It's loaded now. I can see what it looks like in Outlook. I can see what it looks like in SharePoint. I can see how it's going to look in Teams. And you can see there's that slight differentiator between the two. And once I'm happy, I can either publish or I can even schedule this to publish. I haven't put email recipient, so I'm not going to do that now. But I can schedule that to come through as a second time. Once I've done that, and let's go back to the campaign itself, I'll be able to track those different publications that have come through. I can see what's gone out. I could see that showing as scheduled if I remember to fill everything in. But I can also see reporting and analytics, so I can see the reach this has come. And this is why I love Amplify. I can see how many unique users I've had. I can see what the popular channels. I can see where it's been promoted and shared within there. I can view, and that's across all those different publications. I can look at a specific publication and see the details around that. So I can understand which channels are resonating and can help to choose what I want to do. So it could be to move people away from email towards Teams and SharePoint, or it could be, yes, we're seeing success from within there as well. And I can download and bring that out. And that analytics is so, so important. And I think one of the real benefits of Viva Amplify as well. But let's carry on. So a quick summary of what we've shown. We talked about Teams, that private. We talked about whole orgs, the different channels, those announcements that can come through. We talked about the communities, noting those different types of posts with post questions, polls within there. We talked about answers, the power of the AMA. We talked about storylines. I can't remember if you noted this particularly, Laurent, but note that stories is no longer available. It's just media. So you still got that power of creating videos, but it's now in line within there, whether it's in the main one or in that leadership corner. We talked about news posts, news links, newsletters. We talked about email. Don't do it. Stay away from it. If you're going to do it within Amplify and push that forward as well. Laurent, do you want to touch on some of the analytics that are available there?
Yeah, definitely. You already said a lot of things about Viva Amplify, and definitely Viva Amplify is a good solution when your organization is struggling between all these distribution channels and they don't want to have one solution. They want to have a different kind of solution. And in that case, Viva Amplify is really good. As you can see on this slide, talking about analytics, if you want to get some analytics to just check engagement, reaction from people, if you go in Teams, this is the analytics is more general, as you can have only per Teams analytics or per channels analytics. And if you want to have more details analytics, then you can see that if you are using Viva Engage, as I explained, you can get some different kind of analytics, audience analytics, personal analytics. This is really good. And also campaign analytics. We did not cover campaign inside Viva Engage from this session, but you can also, if you want to have some specific sports week campaign in organization, and you can set up that kind of campaign inside Viva Engage. And that's it for analytics. I do not have much to say about this, but definitely if you are looking for more analytics, don't go in Outlook, don't go in Teams, because those analytics are very few.
Yeah, I'd say a little bit within Teams. Obviously, you have the usage analytics kind of across teams as well, but that's very broad. You can't really slice into that to know which teams are popular within there. I believe there are some third-party products that look at that, but we're trying to focus on what's in M365.
Yeah.
So licensing. The nice thing is, I'm sure many of you are on one of these. If not, hopefully you're not on Google. We don't want to talk about that here. But you've got Teams, you've got SharePoint, you've got Outlook, you've got that information. There's whichever one you're on, you're going to have. I'm going to catch myself here, but I think everything we've shown on Teams, Outlook, and SharePoint, you're going to have access to that. You're going to be able to make use of that capability. So a huge amount of what we've shown here is already available. Where you may have to include some extra licensing is when it comes to Viva. Now, when I've talked about Viva, I generally talk about 3 levels. You've got those add-ons, you've got the 2, there's the employee comms and communities, and the other one that I've suddenly forgotten what's called. I think it's the Insights, isn't it? That has Viva Insights, Pulse, and Glint that you can get that's slightly reduced, or you've got that full Viva suite. It is important to say that there is no add-on license for Amplify or Engage. You can't get those individual ones on their own. You need to go to the employee comms and communities. But the pricing pretty much gives you, it's fairly similar to what you would have that. So it's not a bad story, but it's worth noting that you need to go straight to those from that. In terms of pricing, employee, I should remember this. What you will see, and I have a screen, and we'll share the link to this. There is a lovely view of the pricing, and you should then look at your own country's pricing and naturally speak to your licensing provider for that as well. So, limitations and things to think about there. Scaling. How do you scale up? Thank you, keeping an eye on there.
Yeah.
Michael, on that, think about how you're going to scale. If you're putting a lot of blogs into a single SharePoint site, you're probably going to see people lose the information and lose track of that. So you may want to move that into multiple sites, make fantastic use of hub sites so you can connect things together, but have a kind of purpose for each one. So you might have remote living, that could be a hub site, and underneath that you could have Japan, Far East, South America. You could have different locations that allow you to roll up, that would allow you to scale effectively there, and then build your different elements that would come through that. So consider how you're going to do that. If you're talking about email newsletters, well, you're not going to do that, so that's fine. You want to think about that licensing. You want to think about, are you going to go in for that Viva licensing from there or not? That's really the big element for that. Or even possibly if you have people on some of the F1, the frontline elements, they may not have the full access to those as well. You want to think about that analytics. If you're not using Amplify, how are you going to provide that? Are you going to look at third parties? Are you going to drive ways of pulling that data from different places? More importantly, I would say think about those personas within there. How are you going to get this communication out to people? How are you targeting? Think about those different individuals and what do they use, which kind of fits with that adoption and culture. I know there's been a few questions in the chat, which I'll come back to a bit more in a minute, about using Engage versus Teams. There is a certain amount, if your culture is using Teams, if your culture is already using Engage, embrace that as a first one and look to move that out and increase that. Look at why people would want to go there. I worked with a client who was a large charity at one point, and they had a prayer network which drove their Viva Engage usage. There was a purpose behind it, and that was the persona that drove that. And then that kind of evolved onto other things as well. Laurent, do you want to touch on the top down versus bottom up, or the hot and cold, as you call it?
Yeah, but this is much related to personas and cultures. It really depends on the organization. Some organizations have mainly some top-down communication, and top-down communication, this kind of communication, they do not have some engagement or reaction demanding, and that's why it really depends on the culture, on the communication culture you have inside an organization. I fully believe that organization should be a mix of top-down and bottom-up, with bottom-up better than top-down. And if it is the case, you should really look about all the tools we saw today as Viva Engage, and Viva Engage is good to gain some more engagement and reaction as bottom-up communication.
Absolutely. So here is your screen share moment on there. I'm going to grab the link in a second and put it in the chat. I thought it was on the bottom of this one, but it must be in the other version.
Do you want me to paste your link on the chat?
Yeah, if you have that link and want to put in there. Okay. So Laurent has done amazing work with this, and I absolutely credit him with this, about putting all those different tools, a kind of quick start to think about this. Is this everything? No, you will have different things that you want to think about within your organization. Is this a lovely place to get started, to accelerate into your own organization and think what it means? Yes, absolutely. So please grab this, make use of this. I think Laurent will try and share elsewhere as well and make this available. But this is how you can build that communication up with people. So I'll pause and make sure everyone can grab that as a screenshot before Michael starts shouting at me about things. But in summary, these tools work better together. Bringing your Viva Engage into SharePoint, having a tab for your community within Teams that can show that Viva Engage, being very clear to people as to what the purpose of those different elements. But I think in the same way as Laura and I have stretched across the English Channel, we've broken that Brexit divide and come together, bringing your own comms better together, thinking about what the purpose is, thinking about what matters to people, thinking about how you get it to where people are. These tools will work better together with that. And I think it's fair to say, Lauren, Amplify is a lovely way, if you can get that licensing, to bring those things together as well. So, and just quickly, while we answer some questions, and we'll bring their feedback slide up as well. Here's a few links to people. I think calling out that Corp Comms community, if you are interested in communications, it's part of the Microsoft Tech community, but in a kind of separate bubble within there is fantastic. A lot of that kind of early stuff I talked about, the different communication methods. The best link I found on that was the CPD Online, and there's a link to all those different licensing that you can pick up as well.